My name is Layla. I'm a recovered cocaine addict and an alcoholic and a whole bunch of other stuff, but for the purpose of today, we're going to stick to that. And, you know, the workshop is really about what is the fourth dimension. And it's talked about a lot in the big book. It's talked about a lot in science. It's talked about a lot among people. And I think the most important thing for me to be here, to do this with you, is to remember that my personal primary purpose is to carry the message of Cocaine Anonymous to you. And how that will be, you know, bound to the fourth dimension is really crucial. And I also try to keep in mind that there isn't any way that I can convince you of the certainty that I have based on my experiences with the fourth dimension, which is very simply, you know, the spiritual realm of existence. And it's a weird deja vu. There really isn't anything that I can say or do or show you in the big book that will convince you. What I can help you to do is meet the conditions with me that allow you entrance into the world of the spirit. And from that point on, you will have experiences yourself that will convict you without a shadow of a doubt that the spirit realm is real, capital S, spirit realm. And I'm not going to do a course on angels and demons, you know. For that, feel free to, you know, come to my church on Sundays and, you know, I'll tell you all about that. And a lot of people try to, you know, pigeonhole me in this idea that that's what I'm trying to do when I speak from the podium, but it isn't. The big book is really clear about what the fourth dimension is, and that there are certain conditions that must be met, and that once those conditions are met, there are certain conditions to be kept, you know, in order for us to remain in the spirit realm. Why is it important anyway, first of all, to, you know, enter into the spirit realm? And this idea that I'm going to tell you, everything in our program and in our fellowship and in the big book and, you know, in the spirit realm, everything rides on this idea that I need to be, quote unquote, catapulted into the fourth dimension. I need to live in, you know, conscious, consistent contact in the spirit realm because I have exhausted every possibility in this dimension to keep myself clean and sober. Every possible means for me to live in this world sober is exhausted. That is an internal revelation in step one. It isn't anything that you can actually physically practice. I mean, let's get real. Maybe there's a plant in the jungles of Brazil that if I, you know, scratch and sniff enough will cure me of my alcoholism and of my addiction. Maybe there is. And that's why in A, B, and C, when we're getting ready to get catapulted into the fourth dimension, we're getting ready to make the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. It says that probably no human power. The big book is so cool that it leaves that open because, to be honest with you, have I physically exhausted every single possibility in trying to keep myself clean and sober in this realm, in this third dimension realm of existence, you know, where space and time coexist together to create every possibility that could ever possibly happen from the beginning of time to the end of time. Have I exhausted all of that in the physical world? Of course not. It was an internal revelation of absolute defeat. And it came from becoming honest with myself. You know, that was my experience. I was 23 years old when I came into this fellowship. And I was absolutely certain that I was completely destroyed as a human being and could no longer keep myself clean and sober. That there isn't anything. I knew it. And it was a revelation from God. And that wasn't the language that I used. I didn't walk around, I need to go to a meeting because God gave me a revelation that I'm hopeless. My despair opened me up to an experience with God that revealed to me the truth that I'm fucked. To put it really plain and simple for you, that was a revelation from God. But the conditions to get me to that place were all of my own doing. And once I had this experience, honestly, I knew in my heart that there wasn't anything in this world, in this dimension, in this realm that I could do or try. Human power. There's so much like lingo and stuff that we can use, that we hear, but I knew it internally. Where it says to our innermost self do we concede. I knew it in the innermost part of myself that I am fucked. I'm hopeless. I just feel hopeless. I felt hopeless. Lots of people that I meet have felt hopeless. I was hopeless. There wasn't anything that I could do. There wasn't a meeting I could go to. There was nothing that I could do to keep myself clean and sober anymore. And my experience has been, coming around to lots and lots of meetings and sponsoring lots and lots of people and listening to lots and lots of speakers and workshops and conferences. And I can generalize this, but the truth is I have never met anybody who was catapulted into the fourth dimension of existence and lived a happy, sober, and sane life who had not experienced absolute defeat. I don't know, maybe that's you, maybe it's someone that you know, but you know who I'm talking about when you just keep trying things your own way. And you keep trying to find, maybe if I go through the book this way, maybe if I do it that way, maybe if I become this kind of a person, maybe if I move town, maybe if I change careers, maybe if I do whatever. For some reason, no matter how much work that you do, you still can't stay clean and sober. And the reason is not because, you didn't do a good enough fourth step as me. It isn't because you paid back money faster than I did. It's because you've never had an experience with absolute defeat. What does all of this have to do with the fourth dimension? I'm telling you this and you can take it to the bank. The doors will forever remain closed to the fourth dimension, to the spiritual realm of existence, to the great reality they call it, without the experience of absolute defeat and hopelessness. That is the ticket. It opens the door to having a new willingness, a new experience. To be honest, there's a reason why they call it the great reality. It isn't like an alternate reality, like some sort of crazy Star Trek holodeck where, I get to create myself in any way that I want. And there's a lot of people that will tell you that this is what this program is about. It's some sort of a seminar for me to be my own creator, my own God, creating myself anew. It isn't. Sorry. If I could do that, I wouldn't be here. If everything that happened was God's will, I'd never ask for God's will to be done. There's certain language and principles in this book that there are so many things coming against it, and we don't explore it and test it until we go out on a relapse. And it's like, well, why? Wow, why didn't this work? It isn't an alternate reality where I'm going to go and live in my fantasy and get to do whatever I want and recreate myself. There is such a thing as the great reality. There is such a thing as the truth. There is such a thing. I have had experiences with it. And there isn't anything right now that I can say or show you in the book to convince you of that. My message isn't to you. It's to the person who is experiencing right now absolute defeat. It does something. It's something called the collapse of time. It collapses it. Meaning I don't have to go out and live out every single possibility of how I'm going to try to keep myself clean and sober, every single religious idea, every single spiritual idea. I don't have to go out and continue exploring how to keep myself from drowning in a raging ocean. I had a deep and powerful spiritual experience with step one that convinced me in my heart of hearts that not only will I not be able to keep myself clean and sober, I'm not going to remember why I need to. I'm actually that crazy in my own thinking. I actually cannot, no matter what, keep myself clean and sober. I remember one of my first sponsors, I was calling her from a strip club that I was working at. Do you know how crazy? Imagine trying to get sober and do the steps working in a strip club. That's how out of touch with the great reality I was, because it was my life. It was the only thing I'd ever known or ever experienced. Can you imagine her saying to me, I'm not going to work with you until you quit your job, until you dress properly, until you join my home group, until you shake hands the right way, until you practice my religious practices. And, don't kid yourself. Practicing any kind of a religious practice or a religious idea is religion. whether or not you want to make it like New Age or something else, but I'll get to that later. Imagine if she'd like really invited me to practice her religion with her. Because it would have been a good idea for her, because it would have helped me, because it would have prodded me along a little bit faster on the path of getting well. And I'm really grateful she didn't do that. She didn't tell me, you got to quit being a stripper, I'm not going to work with you. Because she knew if she helped me meet the conditions that are required for me to have a deep and effective spiritual experience, the doors would open and I would no longer need a human being to convince me of what I need to do that's right from wrong. And I'm telling you, that's exactly what happened to me. You can't convince me to do anything unless I have an experience with my head ramming into the brick wall. Repeatedly. We're addicts. I don't like to be told what to do. Now, when I'm desperate and dying, I'll do anything that you say, no problem. No problem. But how long is that going to last? See, I'm only teachable and humble when I'm fucked and put in a corner. That's not going to last, though. So what am I going to do? I need to have an experience that convinces me of what reality is. Because there isn't anything, understand, there isn't anything in this world left that can change me enough to get me to stop thinking about smoking crack. Nothing. My son, I love my son. I would die for my son. And I'd probably kill for him too. I really would. I would throw myself in front of a moving train. Dramatically, I would. But I could not keep the thought of smoking crack out of my head for him. And I know lots of people who've had similar experiences. Friends of mine who loved their children dearly. Wasn't enough. Why? Because I have done something to my brain and my body and have lost control of that process and am now powerless to stop it. Nothing on this planet is going to stop it or change it or turn it around. And so when I met with my sponsor, she probably gave me her ideas and opinion, and she told me that it was her opinion. Well, you could do this or you could do that, but ultimately, none of my business. You got to do what you got to do. But she helped me to meet the conditions. And what happens, this is what happens, and it's well-meaning, and I've done it myself many times. We have an experience that convicts us that it's the truth, and we can't help but put that into the process of meeting the conditions and the steps. But I'm telling you that the Big Book says it really specifically. Do not raise such issues no matter what your convictions are. No matter what your religious beliefs are. No matter what your ideas about marriage, about sex, about spirituality, about stripping, about working in a bar, whatever they are, it stresses it over and over again. Why? Because your human opinion cannot take the place of God's words. And when God spoke to me in a dressing room of a strip club, when I asked him directly, God, what should I do? I'm telling you, I was in the strip club, this far away from getting high and drinking. And there wasn't anything on this planet to move me from that place. But because I was meeting the conditions, which are the steps, and doing the work, the doors between this realm and the spirit realm were opened sufficiently for me to be able to ask the question and receive the answer. And the answer was, leave now. But I'm going to tell you something, when God answers you, when you actually have a conversation with God, you will never ask him to back it up. Because he is the truth. He is the author of all truth. He is the truth. So when the truth speaks to you, you are suddenly convicted that it's the truth. And I don't know how, and I don't know why, and I can't explain it, that I was willing to throw away absolutely everything that I had ever believed in for that one sentence from God. I don't know how, but God is the one with the power to do that. Not my sponsor, not the fellowship, not the Big Book even. God. So what happened? I had an experience that opened the door into the spirit realm. And it was a really cool, freaky experience. I was able to discern what was true and what was false. Because you have to understand that the basic problem of drug addiction rests on, I cannot differentiate the true from the false. You have to understand that my disease is basically a lie. I cannot tell anymore that it's a bad idea to smoke crack, and then I go and do it. That's actually my problem. I suffer from a lie that has become more powerful than all my reason and all my sanity and all my good ideas and all my bright ideas. I suffer from this lie. It has the power to corrupt and destroy my life. Like, what's the solution? Oh, it's the fourth dimension, and okay, it's really cool, and we're going to talk about it, and we read about it, and we can circle it, we can highlight it if you're a booker, if you're a mucker, or you can cut it out and paste it if you hate bookers and muckers, whatever. And you can do all of that and have your political ideas and your spiritual angst, and it's all just a form of defiance. That's it. That's all that it is. I hated bookers and muckers just as much as the next guy until I got booked. I just wanted to have the experience. And every idea that I had and every prejudice that I had was really just another form of defiance and resistance. But I'm telling you, something happened when I had an experience with the fourth dimension. It healed me, because all healing and all sickness takes place in the invisible, in the spiritual realm. It manifests into the physical. My healing and my recovery manifested in the physical, but none of this mattered when I was a newcomer. All that mattered was I was smoking crack and drinking. I couldn't deal with the anxiety. I felt like my heart was going to explode every minute of every day, and I became willing to go to any lengths to just not live like that anymore. Now, if somebody told me, what's going to happen is you're going to be catapulted into the fourth dimension, you're going to have these really cool experiences, with a power that chooses to call himself God. And what's going to happen is it's going to completely transform your life. You're going to be healed on all different kinds of levels. And you're also going to pretty much have an experience with the God that you have resented and ridiculed your entire life. And you will live your life based on serving this power. I would have been like, well, just whatever. Like, that's a joke. It was a joke to me, And in the beginning, the only reason why I did this work and why I was open to the idea was really because I was desperate. But what happened is that when I went through the steps, it was a vehicle, it was a design to get me into the fourth dimension. And from that point on, it's simply a pathway from this dimension to all new possibilities, to be recreated. If you're more religious, to be reborn. If you're spiritual, just to just be renewed, regenerated, resurrected, whatever the hell you want to call it. But something happened to me in a very real way, not because I Googled what the fourth dimension was, not because, I went through the steps in a specific way, and not because, I sat down and practiced yoga with my sponsor. We didn't do any of that. As a fellowship, we're not supposed to do any of that. I don't understand, we're not supposed to do any of that. As a fellowship, no matter what our religious or spiritual convictions are, it's supposed to stay out at the door. Because I'm telling you, if we don't protect what we have, it will get corrupted and ruined. Can you imagine if I walked in on somebody when I was a newcomer and they told me that the only way for me to recover is if I went to their church? I was an anti-Christian, like an antichrist, ex-Muslim New Ager. And I'm telling you, now I am a born-again Christian, 100%. Does it have anything to do with the fellowship? None whatsoever. Do people want to make it something to do with the fellowship? Yeah, absolutely. And I understand, because I did the same thing. Because it was a way to keep my prejudice to myself and not have to look at it. I did it too. But can you imagine, with all my prejudice and all my ideas and all my angst and all my bullshit, if I went to my sponsor's house and she's like, well, I'm a Muslim, so this is how you're going to practice it with me. Or to just insert specific prayers with me. And you know who you are who do it, because I used to do it. You insert a certain prayer. Or I invite you to come to my whatever kind of a practice. And I'm telling you, we're not supposed to be doing that. We either respect the traditions or we don't. Can we pick one? And I'm going to tell you something. I actually believe in Christianity, okay? I'm telling you, the last way to get someone to have the experience that I've had is to try to convert you. You can't be converted. You have to have your own experience. That is what converts you. That is what convicts you of the truth. The truth. It's like trying to tell you, you know what, guys, right now it's sunny outside. You might believe me. I might even describe it to you so perfectly that you are like chomping at the bit to go outside and stand in the sunlight. But I'm telling you, my describing it to you is going to keep you a slave to my belief instead of helping you open all the doors so that you can go outside and stand in the sunlight all by yourself. And that is what our purpose is here for. That's why we're here. We are here to teach you how to meet the conditions that you can open up the door and stand in the sunlight with God and feel it and know it and be transformed. It's really hard to stay out of the way, though, when you're a sponsor or when you get convicted or when you have a spiritual experience. And I'm telling you, it's a lot of hypocrisy. I mean, can you imagine if at the next convention you guys let me have a Bible study? Or if I taught you how to practice spiritual warfare and deliverance? Yet we're okay with having yoga. And I'm telling you, it is a religious practice. And there's nothing wrong with it. But it has no place in our fellowship. Again, you either agree with the traditions or you don't. Practicing the principles might lead you to that. It might lead you to 40, 50 minutes of transcendental meditation. I did it for years. It might lead you to that. But we are not supposed to lead you to that. I've been guilty of the same thing. And it's not right. And, it isn't because I have a problem with those practices. I'm telling you, I did them as well. But see, I didn't tell people to go and do them. I did them myself. And if you want to take me out for coffee, I'll tell you about my freaky deaky experiences with it. It was pretty cool and pretty freaky. But it has no place in Cocaine Anonymous. And to the day I drop, I'm going to say it over and over and over again from the podium. It is not the place to indoctrinate you with my religious beliefs, my spiritual experiences, my conceptions of God. The book specifically says, you will find here nothing contentious to your religious beliefs or practices. Telling someone to set aside everything they think they know about God, including the name of Christ or the name of Allah or the name of whoever, that is contentious to people's religious beliefs. And the book specifically says we're not supposed to do that. Why? Why would they say that? Because I'm telling you, it won't last. I've had people that I've worked with, that I've sponsored, who have really liked me. They've really liked my personality. They really look up to me. So they want to do everything that I do. And they do everything that I do. And then because they don't have the direct revelation experience that you're supposed to have with God, they don't experience it. They turn on me and they call me a cult leader. Why? Because they did not have their own experience. You have to have your own experience, or I promise you, you're not going to stay clean and sober. Well, what does all of this have to do with the fourth dimension? The fourth dimension is the great reality. You can't deny reality when you have an experience with it. And I'm telling you, if you're like me, and I am convinced that I am a real drug addict, I am convinced that without the power of God working and living through me 24/7, I am so bitchy and irritated and crazy and obsessive and mental. I will drive my family crazy. I drive my son crazy. I drive my boyfriends crazy. And then eventually I'm in a corner and the original thought comes into my mind that says, let's smoke crack. And I'll go, okay. Or I won't even think at all. I'll just find myself doing it because I'm a real drug addict. So unless I have a real experience with healing, it doesn't matter how many religious outfits I put on, or new lingo I use, I will use again. You will use again. We are great actors. I'm a great actor. I can act like I'm having a spiritual experience. I can act like I know what I'm doing and what I'm talking about. But I'm telling you, unless I'm having a full real experience in the spiritual realm, I'm not going to stay here for very long. I'm not going to stay happy and free. I will use again. I will get into dysfunctional relationships. I will become bitchy and irritable and controlling as hell again and again and again until something happens to me that relieves me of all those problems. And I'm telling you right now, I live a life that I am relieved of these problems. I am aware of them. I acknowledge them, but I have a working relationship with God. I know who God is and I know who I am. And I never get the two job descriptions mixed up ever again. That's my prayer. I never, ever want to think I'm God, because I'm not. Because if I was, wouldn't be here. Wouldn't need to be here. I would just will myself sober, and then adios, see you later. I wouldn't need to do this. What this all has to do with the fourth dimension is I'm telling you, you cannot fix your spiritual problem in the physical realm. Another part, it talks about, that when we straighten out spiritually, when we are healed spiritually, we straighten out mentally and physically. I had a lot of mental disorders. Like, my old sponsor is here. She can fill you in. This very hotel, one of my first conferences, I could not stop obsessing about stuff. I just couldn't. Couldn't turn it off. Couldn't stop the panic attacks. Couldn't stop the anxiety. I would stop breathing in the middle of the night. I had tons of sexual dysfunction. And here he is, whatever the saying is, hallelujah. I had lots of it. Lots of sexual dysfunction, lots of emotional problems. And I'm telling you that God healed me, is healing me, and will heal me. In the spirit realm. Where my spiritual problem exists and where the spiritual solution also exists. Our job is to show you in a very simple, clear-cut, non-denominational way how to get to the power that will fix you. My job is not to teach you how to meditate for 30 minutes in the morning. Sorry, you're wrong. You do that, rock on. Your sponsee, if I went to a guy and said to him, I really like your spiritual practice, I want to do what you do, I would hope that he would sit down and teach me. But we're not supposed to indoctrinate one another and mix it with the program. It isn't the program. I don't care how good you make it sound. It is not our program. But I'm telling you, if you follow the program, and we're going to do it like in a couple of minutes, if we actually follow the program, if we actually do simply what it says in steps 10 and 11 and 12, the door, open sesame. The doors will open. You will have your own experience with the power. And I'm sure that he will direct you in a way that God can reveal himself to you more. Maybe it will be with a 30-minute meditation. Maybe it will be that you will start practicing Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, New Age religion. I don't know. I don't care. But I'm telling you, be very, very clear about my fellowship and your fellowship. That is not the job of us here. It is not the job that's in the big book. And I'm telling you, doing that is going to interfere from you actually having a real experience with God. But I don't know, this is this weird thing. It's like we do all this stuff, but then we just pretend like we're not doing it or something. But that's what we're doing. You do realize that we're mixing religion with our fellowship. And we're not supposed to do that. And the book is really specific about that. There are many helpful books that says, go see a rabbi, go see a priest, go see a sheikh, go see whoever you want. But it says go, don't bring. Go. See, me personally, I'm really serious about my religious beliefs. So I actually practice them outside the fellowship. I'm not lazy and bring them into the fellowship. I want to talk about Jesus. I'm going to set up a meeting in my house and we're going to talk about Jesus. I'm going to sit in a coffee shop with a newcomer. We're not talking about Jesus. I take my religion seriously. I take my spiritual practice seriously. But the thing that I take the most seriously is that this program was given to me without any strings attached, for free. Nobody interfered with that. Do you know how special that is, what we have here? It's really special. Go out in the world and see where you find that. Even places that say that they're non-denominational, they kind of are. And that's okay. I'm telling you, it really is okay. But this is sacred here. This is ground zero. And we have to keep it that way. And I am committed to keeping it that way. Whether you like it or not. Feel free to join me. But I'm telling you, you don't want to miss out on the experience of God. A real experience. I'm a Christian, and most of the people that have had difficulty with sponsoring are Christians. We have so many ideas, so many beliefs, so many practices. I'm like, have you ever read the Bible? Well, no. I don't understand. Okay, well, I'm a Hindu. As a sponsor, my job is to hold you accountable through the steps. Really? Then you need to go and practice that. Go to your temple. Go to your guru. Go and do that. But see, we want to stand at the door and never travel down the path. But we want to have the freedom of preaching it to everybody here. And the truth is, the only way to find out if what you believe is the truth or a dead end, you have to travel down that path. And I have traveled down many spiritual paths, and they either led me into the fourth dimension of existence, in which I have a power, which is ability. I have the ability to do things I never could do before. I have the ability to be still. I have the ability to not be a hypochondriac and think I have swine flu 24/7. Maybe 1 out of 24, but not 24/7 anymore. But the reason why I have all of this is because there's actually like a two-way street in the world of the spirit. I don't send my sponsor in anymore to get the wisdom for me. I don't treat him like Moses. Go in there and, you talk to God and then bring it back to me. I don't do that. I go myself. Because that's what this book is asking you to do. That is the program. You have to stand face to face with God and hear what he has to say. And I promise you, there isn't a human being on this planet that will ever be able to take that away from you. No matter what their religious beliefs. And as a fellowship, our job is to protect that. We are supposed to lead you in prayer and meditation in the most simplest non-denominational terms. That's it. Do you know how much my own personal beliefs, I would love to tell you about the really crazy, amazing experiences that I've had. If you would only just do this, or if you would only just do that. But I'm very clear on my orders from this fellowship, from this program, from good sponsorship, and from God. Do not interfere in God's job. It's up to God to reveal himself to you. Not mine and not this fellowship's. We're in the business of cleaning, not healing. That's God's job. It's really simple, and we're gonna go through it together. I've asked Rachel to help me, and we're gonna start very quickly on what it means to remain in the realm of the spirit, which is the fourth dimension. And it's with steps 10 and 11 and 12. And before I start, I ask myself really simply, is there anything in the first 9 steps that I am doing or not doing that is blocking God from accessing my heart? Do I have a hard heart or do I have a soft heart? And I'll tell you what hardens my heart. Resentment and fear and lust and inappropriate sex conduct. Lying to the government. Gossiping, trashing people. All that kind of stuff. And that stuff, when it talks about it in steps 10, it says, now we have come to this point. We have entered the world of the spirit. So going through the steps, I've now cleaned up enough that I can actually go into the world of the spirit. Now, how do I stay there and be able to come out into this world and back again? I've seen it. I've done it. Having such a powerful spiritual experience, you can't even talk to me. People are trying to talk and I'm just like, nothing matters. I just want to float around with God. It's just not effective, unless a person's on acid and then they really relate to me and they're like, dude, yeah, I am one with the fucking tree. Okay, that's nice. But it makes me less effective. Effective spirituality is where I can access the world of the spirit, but that God can access this world through me. That is the purpose of steps 10 and 11 and 12. I mean that you are giving God an opportunity to access this broken world through you. That's how I was 12 steps. I was captured. I would bet my life on it that God used my sponsor to access me. It's so beautiful. It was so amazing. In a really human way, she did it. She wasn't floating in a toga, talking about the oneness of the tree with me. She talked to me like a real person, but allowed God to move her in little nuances to touch me and draw me to have my own experience with God. Because I'm telling you, God wants you. He wants to have a relationship with you. He wants to use you. He thinks you're worthy. He loves you, whatever that conception is to you. He actually wants to use you. He wants to have communion with you. He wants to work with you. But what keeps that from happening, to be honest with you, is when I get ashamed and afraid from all the mistakes that I've made, so I hide from God, and that turns my heart hard. Because in order for God to heal me, he may have to point a couple of things out, like, you need to go and apologize to that person who you ridiculed earlier. You may need to go declare some more money on your taxes, girlfriend. And I don't particularly want to hear that. And he's not doing that because he's a particularly picky God. You picked me, you can't be that picky. He's doing that because that is what will heal me. Because it's those little tiny things that close the door on God. Someone told me this once, it's like termites. You don't realize that your house is being eaten alive until it crumbles. And all the little dishonesties and resentments and control and judgments and no love and no tolerance, they eat away at my house. And then I crumble and wonder why. This is what happens to me personally. And I don't realize that my house is crumbling until I try to put pressure on it. Get involved in a crazy relationship. Oh my God, where'd my house go? It crumbled. It didn't crumble just because of that bad relationship, but from all the things eating away at my house. And then a wind comes, blows my house down. No huffing or puffing involved. It just blows my house down. And so what I need to do, and I do this, every morning, and to be honest with you, it took me years to get consistent and disciplined. And the reason that it took me a really long time is honestly, secretly, I really wanted to run my own life. And God was my really, really, really amazing spiritual booty call or something. Or my fanny pack, my parachute. Okay, it's getting kind of dangerous and I'm going to eject now. But God wasn't God. And I wanted to keep it that way. And the amazing thing that happened, I asked God finally, why can't I get serious and disciplined about the disciplines of 10 and 11 and 12, like doing them every morning? I don't care if I'm washing my face and making breakfast for my son. I'm doing them. Why is it so difficult for me? And he answered me really clearly. He says, you're not committed to me. I'm like, well, yes, I am. And look at all I do. He says, that's nice. Your friends in CA may buy that. And, your friends and all this kind of stuff, they may go along with that. He goes, but I know you really well. I made you. I'm telling you, you're not committed to me. Because I don't think I need to be. And then I had a series of very unfortunate events happen in my life. And they were the best things that ever happened in my life. That I realized that not only am I nothing without God, I don't want to be anything without God. Because with God, it's the only time I'm ever really myself. Like a really silly, nerdy, grade 5 kid. That's who I am. And I have the freedom and the power to live that way. No matter who is in my life or leaves my life. I'd prefer that you stay in my life, but if you leave my life, my house isn't going to crumble. Because it's built on rock. It is. It's built out of God. Through me, through the people in my life. So I ask myself every morning, before I get to step 10, God, is there anything that I'm doing? And right now we can ask it, is there anything that I'm doing or thinking or believing or practicing in my life that is blocking me from you? And probably the first couple of things that popped into your head are those things. The best way for me to know what my unresolved conflicts are is to try to be still. The second I try to be still, that person's face that I owe amends to floats into my mind. That bill that I said, forget it, I'll just get a tanning package instead. That bill floats into my mind. And that's how I get clear. Is there anything that I am doing that is blocking me from staying in the fourth dimension and actually having a relationship with it? And, if there is, I write it down. And then I move on. And, it's really simple. This is what I do in the morning. I go to page 84. And what I read, and I turn it into a prayer. I said, it says here, this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests that we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. So first of all, it's telling you for sure, at this point, you really should have done all the work. See, I know people that try to live in steps 10 and 11 and 12 and practice meditation and they go crazy because they've never actually done the rest of the steps first. And you will be haunted until you actually get it done. You wouldn't believe how many amends I put off for some stupid reason or another, and how tortured I was every time I would work with a sponsee in steps 9. It was like the hard pill of hypocrisy, trying to digest that. And then when I would go and finally make it, it was like nothing. It was like sandcastle walls that God would just dissolve. But it would keep coming up over and over and over again. And it also guarantees that we are going to make mistakes. I love that. Admit it when you're wrong, not if. I don't know why, if anyone can, relate to this. I really hate being wrong. Probably because I've treated people so badly who were wrong. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with that. It's very difficult for me. Much easier now. Still difficult to admit when I'm wrong. But it says promptly admit when we're wrong. Let's gloss over that one. And the reason is because if I'm God running the show, do you know that every mistake that you make, if you're the captain of the ship, would probably cost the lives of everyone on that ship? If you're the person steering it, do you know that every little mistake that you make, you're the driver. Every mistake that you make will probably cost you your life. But when you're not the driver, you can afford to make some mistakes. Make them right. But when you're the driver, you better be perfect. And that's been my problem. I want to be perfect, knowing if I make a mistake, this could cost me my life. When I'm not the driver, not so much. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. We have entered the world of the Spirit, this other dimension where all healing takes place. Our next function. So my purpose in life is now to grow in understanding and effectiveness. So say, God, please help me to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Help me to continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. So say, God, please help me to quickly ask you to remove them when they come up. To talk about them with someone. To not keep anything to myself. Please, God, save me from keeping secrets. Or being a phony, living a double standard that I just can't even live up to, but I'm condemning people who they can't live up to it either. That's nice. Help me to make amends quickly. It's like so simple. It doesn't have to be a big deal. This happened a couple of months ago with somebody. Something happened and it was like abrupt and it was like plaguing me and I'm like, I just can't deal with this. And I went up to him and I said, I'm really sorry that I snapped at you. He had no memory of what had happened. I'm like, you mean I didn't devastate you? I don't understand. I have so much power. And he was like, you know what? I totally understand. No problem. Thanks. But moving on. And it could do nothing to me. Because these mistakes are not what kill me. It's the voices that they create. Like the lying voices. Oh, you're a piece of shit. You're a hypocrite. You'll never be like those people. You're never going to be good enough. You'll never stay recovered. You're never going to be able to really help people. And you've made so many mistakes and blah, 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 blah. That try to drag you into the future, into the past. They have no power when you pull the plug. And you pull the plug by telling somebody. I can't live with secrets personally. It just eats me up too much. And then it says here, then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone that we can help. So if I'm at work, I resolutely turn my thoughts to my clients. You know what I used to do? Stop working and call my sponsor. Will you pray with me on the phone? Like, that's not resolutely turning your thoughts to someone that you can help. But work in progress. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Love and tolerance of others is supposed to be my code. Not apathy and not making a stand in the truth, but also not beating people over the head because they don't see things the way that I do. A really wise man told me this. He goes, it's all about the serenity prayer. You can be concerned, yet remain unaffected. If you are affected, you're thinking about this stuff at night. You're drilling the big book down people's throat. But if you're also not concerned at all, you don't give two shits about your fellowship. And I do. I care enough about my fellowship that I'm going to tell you the truth about what concerns me. I'm going to tell people about what I think, concerns me about my own life or their life in my life. But I'm telling you, when I go home tonight and go to bed, the last thing I'm thinking about is the conference. The last thing I'm thinking about is what Joe Blow thinks of me in my home group. I'm just not thinking about it. I'm not affected, but I am concerned. And there's a difference. And to me, that's love and tolerance. I love you and tolerate you enough to let you have your own experience. But I love you and tolerate you as well enough to make a stand for your life in the truth. What I know to be is the truth. What I know for sure is that the people who actually work this program and continue to do this every day, they stay sober. They have incredible experiences with God. See, if I try to add something in here and go, okay, guys, now we're gonna meditate for 30 minutes. How many of us are gonna do that tomorrow? Can we please honestly think about this? How many of you are gonna meditate tomorrow for 30 minutes? How many of us know that that's just my opinion and experience versus the big book? Some of us do, but what about the people who don't? What if some people actually think that this is step 10 and 11? Like, that's what makes it dangerous. You know, we have to differentiate. You want to know what I personally do every morning? I'll take you for coffee and I'll tell you. But when it comes to the program, this is what I do in the morning. I include this with my own spiritual and religious practice, but I never mix the two for people. Not anymore, because it's not right. It's not fair. Goes on to talk about we've ceased fighting anything or anyone because our, battle is not in the physical, all this kind of stuff. It's really not. It's in the spiritual. And your only defender is God. And then it goes on to say that it's easy to let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. And I'm telling you, step 11 is so simple. I wake up in the morning and I say, I'm telling you, I'm 9 years sober and I'm so annoyingly creative. I just research all this stuff and I want to do all this stuff, but I'm telling you, it has not changed that I do the same thing in the morning. I may add stuff to my wardrobe, but I don't take off my shoes. And my shoes are steps 10 and 11 and 12 as outlined in the book. I say, what are my plans for the day? My plans today were to have breakfast, come to the conference, be with my son, go home, watch a movie, hang out, work with the sponsee, I don't know, whatever your plans are for the day. And then it says, before we begin, I ask you, God, to direct my thinking. I especially ask that my thinking be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, and self-seeking motives. That's the third dimension thought life realm. That's how I am when I'm living here on my own will. It's amazing because it talks about every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How do I get the vision of God's will? From living in the fourth dimension with God. But do I carry it out in the fourth dimension? No. I come back here and I carry the vision of God's will. And I don't pretend to know what that is. I ask Him, what is your will for me today? What do you want me to do for you today? And then I say, give me the power to carry that out today. Not enforce it on other people. But also not to go, well, God's will for me is my will for me. That's not what the book says. It's not. Constantly reminding ourselves all day long, every day, let your will, not mine, be done. How can I better serve you? I am no longer running the show. And what that does is it puts my thought life on a plane of gratitude, honest, and God-seeking motives. It's the opposite of what I just asked Him to divorce my thinking from. If I'm agitated or doubtful, I say in the mornings, God, help me to be aware of my obsessions today. Resentment is obsession, fear is obsession, lust is obsession, greed is obsession. My defects of characters, boom, like that, become obsessions. Help me to be aware of my obsessions. I do the third step prayer on them. It says we select and memorize some prayers. So I do the third step prayer. I have I have a file folder of prayers. Some just spiritual, some hardcore Christian prayers. I never confuse the two. I don't say, well, I'm doing all that prayer over there, so I don't really need to do what this says. Not true. A newcomer comes to my house and they really want to learn how to do steps 10 and 11 and 12, and they see all the stuff around my house. We're not going to talk about that. We're talking about this, because that's what you asked me to help you to do. I am not qualified in this fellowship to do anything else. And if I think I am, I'm exploiting this fellowship. Done that, been there, done that, gotten the t-shirt. All that jazz. Prayer and meditation. Meditation, as the big book describes it, is contemplating my thought life. It is not trancing out. That's something different. It is contemplating my thought life, getting still, and listening to my thoughts. What are they saying? What needs to be treated today? And it goes on to say, we ask God all throughout the day, show me what my next step is to be. Like if we actually read this every day, you would see that it's totally opposite to living a life run on self-will. And it's just littered all throughout the book, but especially in steps 10 and 11 and 12, that it's all about, give me the vision of your will, let your will, not mine, be done. How can I better serve you? Show me what my next step is to be. How can I be useful? How can I be helpful? Please get the force of my thinking off of myself. Help me to think of what I can do for you. And I'm telling you what God will do eventually, because you're allowing him to use your mind and your spirit like a highway, is he can't help but transform it because he's using it. But God's power is so great, he cannot enter a vessel. He must enter an instrument, a channel. And there's some specific prayers. God in the 12 and 12, in step 11, Lord, make me an instrument. God, make me an instrument of your peace. And peace, what is the original definition of peace? Reconciliation. It doesn't mean make me an instrument of your peace where I go and I drop petals upon people. No, make me an instrument, a machine of how to reconcile your broken people to you. It says, we say these prayers that are really like demonstrating and really pushing the principles that we've been discussing. And that's my job now. And I continue to do it all day long, every day. Prayer becomes a lifestyle, not a select time. And something incredible happens. The instrument gets changed. He tunes it. I'm telling you, for sure, I'm not the same person that I was 9 conferences ago. And I know it is not because I joined a crazy meditation cult. I know it isn't because I changed the big book. It's in spite of those things that I got changed, because I stuck to what's in this book. And I invite you, if for nothing else, to investigate that and explore that for yourself. Because my message is not for people who have not experienced complete defeat. You cannot hear me. You just don't care. Or you want to, but you just can't relate to it. My message is for people who are having deep and effective experiences with complete defeat. And the solution to that we have here as a fellowship, are the 12 steps. And the maintenance of them are in steps 10 and 11 and 12, which will open you up to be able to practice your religion, your spirituality more effectively. We're not here to indoctrinate you. Step 12 is really simple for me. I ask God, humbly, please give me the power to practice these principles in all my affairs. Yeah. Not just at a meeting and not at a conference. Like who would know? You know. God knows. Help me to practice the principles at work. Help me to practice the principles. Honesty. Having integrity. Me, honest and integrity, no manipulation in a relationship. Excuse me? Probably why I was single for so long. Were you willing to sacrifice that? Me, personally, no. But I am now. And I have been for a while, which is why I'm not in dysfunctional relationships. Practice the principles in all my affairs. I don't have the power to do that. I don't know how to do that. With all my experience, my wisdom has taught me one thing. Do not rely on your wisdom. Do not rely on your information. I let God do it for me, through me. And he will, it's so amazing. I will say something to one person and then it'll be almost completely different the way I say it to the second person, but the basic principle is the same. I can't do that. Otherwise you'll become a robot. You will talk the same way to every single person and you won't be effective, because God's spirit is creative. He will take 3 colors and make 1,000 pictures out of it. This is not conveyor belt recovery. Boom, you're recovered. Boom, you're recovered. Boom, you're recovered. Try that. See what happens. You're not going to be able to market God and package him up nicely. He's not going to go for it. That I know for sure about God. But you can allow him to transform you into an instrument and live a life that's so cool. I ask him every morning, help me to practice these principles in all my affairs, regardless of what the personal consequence will be to me. Even if it makes me look stupid. Even if I lose out on money. Even if I have to apologize to someone who's 2 days sober, oh my God, it's so insulting to my ego. It doesn't matter. Please help me to stay as willing as I was when I was a newcomer. It's a lot harder to stay as willing as a newcomer, because it's not the desperation that's needed anymore. I need to have an experience that will keep me hooked. I don't want to live my life desperate anymore. And then I say, God, help me to practice these principles in all my affairs. Give me the power to carry that out and to practice them and succeed in living by them. Help me to be okay with making mistakes and to forgive others for making mistakes. And above all, help me to carry this message to anybody you want me to. and teach me to be prudent and silent when it's not the time. Because not carrying the message when I'm not supposed to has been as powerful as carrying the message when I'm supposed to. If you allow people to just be themselves and come to you, they will. They will know that it's okay. I've had so many people who are like, screw you and blah, 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 and talk crap. And inside I'm seething, and I go home and I do inventory, and I have to pray for them. I mean, like some of the people that I resented in the past, they must be so blessed because I prayed for so much blessing for them. Because I was so resentful. And yet I did not shove it down their throat. And I did not continue to go on and on and on. And what ended up happening is when they were desperate and messed up and had nobody else to talk to, they would call me up. And be like, you know, I know that I've said this and that about you. And I have to tell you, like, that is such an amazing feeling to have trusted God enough to not retaliate or to not power trip or to not talk about the message when in my heart I know I'm not supposed to. Because this is about following God's will, not executing my plan. And the amazing thing is I go home at night and it says all through the day I practice this, asking, talking with God, with other people, getting out of myself. So I'm able to see more and more where I go off, where I go wrong. So I have less inventory at night. And at night it's really simple. I just look at my day. Was I resentful? Was I selfish? Was I dishonest? Have I kept anything to myself? You know, was I thinking mostly about myself? Some tough questions, because it's, yes. Were you kind and loving towards all? No. What could I have done differently? What could I have done better? Everything. After a time, you'll be able to start answering those questions differently when you take seriously that we're supposed to carry out God's vision, God's will in our daily activities. I've slacked off? Absolutely. Again, I really wasn't committed. At the end of the day, the only reason why I do anything is because I have found a good reason to. And the good reason is this: I don't want to die in a gutter with my broken stripper heels. To keep it really simple for you. I don't want to be a guru. I don't want to be a cult leader. I don't want to convert everyone to Christianity. But the thing that God has transformed the most inside of my heart is this: that more than anything, I want to do what God wants me to do. That, to me, is more of a miracle than the fact that I am recovered from cocaine and alcohol addiction. I am recovered from codependent relationships. You know, I do not practice loving detachment. I just detach. Bye-bye. I don't want to be in a sick relationship. Good luck. Not going to happen. Can't do it. I've lived too much of my life in sickness. Don't want to be sick. Don't want to be involved in sickness. I understand. I have compassion. You're not coming into my bed sick. Sorry. In a meeting, okay, I'll sit with you, but that's about it. And that is a transformation. That is to be recovered. I'm emotionally recovered. I know that there are things about me that need to be changed. Toned down, perhaps. It's a work in progress. That's cool. But more than anything, do you understand the miracle of like such self-will run riot that me, Layla, queen stripper of the universe, I want what God wants. Do you understand? Look, we're friends. He's like my husband. I care about what he cares about. And before, I didn't even have friendship with God. It was like, I'm in trouble, please help me, please save me, and I'll do your will so I don't have to smoke crack. I'll go to a coffee shop and work with a newcomer. He's like my husband. I care about what he cares about. I actually love God. I actually want to do what he wants me to do, and I listen to him. I actually listen to God. And as a result, my life is so cool. I love my fellowship. I love my home group. I love my life. I love my son. I'm not mean anymore all the time. I respect other people's opinions. They're right to have them without being crucified or executed or something. No, seriously. I can actually really have deep and effective relationships with other people. My sponsees are my friends. That is so cool. I've always had to have like a hierarchy because I don't know how any other way to be. I got to know who's got the power and who doesn't have the power. No, I had a sponsee of mine. She's 2 months sober, and I was telling her something about what was going on. She says, "You know what, Layla? I just noticed maybe like what you're saying and what you're actually doing are a little bit inconsistent." The burn. It was a, what? Do another fourth step. No, I'm just kidding. It was good to know I still had, like, I'm still me, that I was a little bit like, ouch, how do I go around this? And the truth is, she's right. That's true. That's true. That's true. That's a real friendship. That's a real relationship. That's real accountability. Can I hear it from the person I don't think is qualified to tell me? That's real humility. Well, can I hear it from someone who's 30 years sober and I've designated as my mentor? Sure. But can I hear it from somebody I don't like? Can I hear it from somebody who I don't think, practices the program the way that I do, loves God the way that I do? Am I teachable? Am I humble? Am I real? Am I loving? Am I fun? Am I, driving people around me crazy? And the really amazing thing is yes to a lot of those good things. And yes to some of the really bad things. The cool thing is, I get to actually this is what's so funny. And, I'm going to end with this. And if we have any questions or you want to spend some time in, 10 and 11 and 12 and really, just doing this or sharing your experiences with it instead of just asking me questions, is I just came back I was asked to speak at a conference in Texas. And I just think it's really funny. People paid money for me to get on a plane and go talk to them about how crazy I was when I was a stripper and getting high and stuff. And I didn't know them. I'd met one of the guys because he lives in Texas and he was there and he'd been here to speak at conferences and we're friends. But everybody else I didn't know. And I'm telling you, before the end of the weekend, there was about 10, 12 of us in my hotel room and we were praying together and hanging out together. And there was a spirit of unity and a fellowship that was it was amazing. I was with my family. As much as I love the people that are in CA Toronto, that God has the power to collapse space and time and differences and ideology and religious beliefs and practices to bring us all together to learn what it means to really be a brother to a brother and a sister to a sister. Come on, that is so amazing. A few years ago, I would have fucking robbed you blind. I had no conscience about it whatsoever, and God restored my conscience that not only do I not want to do that or need to even do that, I actually am willing to put you first. That is so different from for somebody like me. It's so different. I actually care what happens to you. I care about the mother whose children are in CAS right now because nobody's taken her through the steps quickly and properly. I care. I care enough to let her have her own experience, but I care enough to say, I'm tired and I'm working. Come on over to my house and do it. That is as a result of going into and living in the fourth dimension. See, the problem that can be a problem is once you invite the truth, which is God, which is the light, into your life, it's really hard to hide in the shadows anymore because the light itself dissipates all the shadows. That's kind of the problem. It's really hard to lie to myself. It's really hard to keep things hidden. It's really hard to be manipulative or to stay angry when God saved me. That's all I can tell you, for sure. He saved me. He gave me a life that is so incredible. And, we were talking about this morning. He was talking about this line, but he was using it about business, and I was talking about it in recovery. And it's, from Spider-Man, the movie, so bear with me. And he said that, with great power comes great responsibility. And I'm telling you, it's true. God gave me a shitload of power. A lot of power in my life, a lot of power in the world, in business, in my church, in my life. But with that power comes great responsibility. I am responsible for you as you are responsible for me. We are supposed to take inventory of our fellowship and our meetings without attacking or disrespecting. But we are supposed to see, are we living according to the principles in the big book and following the traditions, or we're not? And the amazing thing about that is I want to do those things because God has given me a life, I'm telling you, I don't deserve. The way I lived before, it isn't because I have low self-esteem and now I have, I just have this guilt complex. I really did not deserve the life that I have now. The things that I did to other people and to myself for years, no remorse, no caring. God pulled me out of a garbage can and saved me. It's like He brought me to life. I'm a real person with a real heart for free. And I love him for that. But if I love God, I love what he loves. And I'm telling you, what God loves the most is you. He loves his children. And so my job in this world until I fucking drop dead is to tell you how to meet the conditions to enter into God's world and have an experience that will rock you out. I invite you to explore that and experiment with it and know this for sure. No matter what you go, no matter where you go, no matter what religious or spiritual practice you do, God is with you. God is with you. God was with me in the crack house. God was with me in the strip club. God was with me when I was chanting for 45 minutes a day, twice a day. God was with me, when I just was doing all kinds of crazy stuff. God has always been with me, and that was my message that I got from God and that I'm giving to you. He is with you. My invitation is, will you be with him? My very first sponsor told me that. She's like, what good is it knowing that you've got a Hummer riding in the back of you, protecting you on a lonely desert highway with all the lights out? If you turn on the light, you will see that he has been with you always, in all ways. But the desire has to come from you. If you want to know God, if you really want to know the truth, the way to God, the way to give you the greatest joy and the pleasure and the just amazingness of life, if you really want that, there isn't anything in this or any other fucking dimension that will stop you. He will cut a path straight to your heart from his. So if there's a disconnect, I promise you it's on your part, as it was in mine, because God is with you. And I invite you to be with him and to be with us, so that the widening circle of peace on earth that they talk about in Bill's story will get bigger and bigger and bigger. The craziest people, all different faiths, all different ideas and opinions can be brought together in one room to be moved by the Spirit of God to help his other children. What can top that? And I want to know that I'm doing a good job for God. And the way to do that is to consistently and continuously press into the world of the Spirit. Steps 10 and 11 and 12 are the sword that slices what is false from what is truth. And it's your sword. Take it and slice away. Or not. Whatever you decide. God is with you and he loves you and I love you and I love my fellowship. And I invite you to take a stand with me and in this fellowship so that we can really, 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 really stop watching people go back out and die. I just, if there's anything that I can do personally to not let that happen, I'm willing to do it. And this whole idea, we don't have the power to save anybody. Yes, we do. The book says we have recovered and have been given the power to help others. If it wasn't for my sponsor sitting on a park bench with me, I wouldn't be here. And my son wouldn't be here with me. I know that for sure. I hope you do. That's it.